currency.
The New World Order.
Those are the roots of trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's live edition. It is the Monday edition, October 1st, 2012. Man, this year went by super fast. Time definitely seems like it's speeding up. And I'm really surprised I haven't seen the end of the world nutbags out yet. And when I say that, I mean the people that really won't listen to you and, you know, are pretty much packing their things and ready to off themselves because of, I shouldn't call them nutbags. I shouldn't call them nutbags because they believe in the end of the world. It is, after all, something that's been jammed down their throat, and it's just their fear that they're based off of. So I shouldn't call them nutbags. It's an ad hominem, and it's a fallacy on my behalf. So I'll give myself a hand slap. There you go. All right. I don't want to waste any more time. I want to bring up my guest for this evening, and I want to introduce him to those of you that may not know who he is, although I find that hard to believe because he's got a show here on Orion himself 5 days a week, and he's got that type of presence and personality that it's hard not to notice him. He does stick out. The one, the only, Sergeant Ryan Brooks from The Sound of Freedom. Ryan, welcome to the broadcast, brother.
Hey, Popeye. Thanks for having me.
I really respect what you do, and I respect your opinion on things, especially the fact that you're a younger guy. You're about 11 years younger than I am, and it's nice to see someone of your generation awake and aware as to what's going on, especially considering what you've been through. I'm going to give you the floor. Go ahead and tell the listeners who don't know anything about you a little bit about yourself, and then go ahead and plug the crap out of your show, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Well, to anybody who doesn't know, I'm Ryan Brooks. I'm from Washington State out here on the West Coast. I'm an Army veteran. I was in the United States Army for 5 years. I was a cavalry scout. I went to Afghanistan for a year. And that's really where my awakening process kind of began, Popeye, because we started to see stuff over there where a lot of soldiers are just kind of trained to go along to get along, don't question it, that's just how it is. And when I started seeing the things that we were doing, I really started to question it. And I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it. And I'm glad I did because, I came home after a year of being over there. Excuse me. And after a few months, the conditioning kind of sets back in, just kind of accepting America for what it is, just everything we have. When you come home from a deployment, you're so excited. You're like a man on fire. You only sleep like 2 or 3 hours a day because you're just so happy to be in America again. But after a couple months, that goes away. You get right back into your being comfortable, and you lose that desire, that appreciation, because you just get used to it. And going back on the things that I wrote down while I was there, I just kept telling myself, wow, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe these things happened to us. So much of this stuff still doesn't make sense. And I'll never forget, Popeye. Basically, the thing that just got me on a roll was when I was on YouTube, and I was just looking up mindless fluff, like your average American, stuff that didn't have anything to do with anything important. And somehow I found Charlie Sheen's video, his video message to President Obama, and I thought, well, Charlie Sheen's funny, I'll watch that, And from there, I saw Building 7, and at that time, the old saying goes, when the student is ready to learn, that's when the teacher could teach. And I think because of everything that I saw in Afghanistan and me knowing that something was not right, I was then able to, when I saw Building 7, I didn't reject it anymore. I thought, wow, this is very interesting. I'm going to start looking into it. And then from there, man, I literally fell into the rabbit hole. I started learning about genetically modified food, false flag terror, the hoax of Western medicine, the vaccination problem we have, just the fact that we're under a two-party dictatorship where the left-right paradigm is something that's used to control us. I used to be a hardcore Democrat. I was raised in a family where if you had to use the bathroom, you told mom and dad you had to take a George Bush, the first, an old school George. And, I signed wave for Al Gore in the year 2000 when I was, 16, 15 years old. I voted for John Kerry. I fell for Hope and Change. I totally fell into the culture of personality that they did, the cult of personality, really. But that's what's got me so fired up, because I feel like, if I could be so brainwashed to join the military in 2007 or late 2006 and be so brainwashed to think that people like that disgusting freak Al Gore is a good person and listen to Barack Hussein Obama, if I can go from that to, now I'm just so adamantly involved with just trying to get the truth out. Everyone I talk to, I try to make some type of difference or just plant a little seed in their head. I feel like if I can do that, then anybody can. Because, Popeye, I used to be a sad, sorry, brainwashed twit, like a lot of people that are still in our country. And I'm not knocking any of them personally, but it's just like, you know what? If I can make the change, I have confidence that a lot more can do it. But it starts with just, looking in the mirror and admitting, wow, I was fooled, I was tricked, I didn't know what was going on. And I feel that that's a big roadblock we have, Popeye, is so many people don't want to admit that they were wrong or that they didn't know what was going on. But once you get past that, man, things just really start to open up for you. And I guess where I'm going with this is, I was in the military realizing that I was part of something that is not honorable anymore, something that's just, they're soft-killing soldiers with depleted uranium, these bovine smallpox injections, anthrax injections, all the stuff you're exposed to downrange, all the mental problems soldiers have, just pretty much being cannon fodder. And just dealing with that while I was still in. I tried to talk to my fellow soldiers, and they'd laugh at me and say, oh, Building 7, oh, the Russians did it. Brooks thinks the Russians did 9/11. And they would try to do jokes on me, like say that one of my soldiers disappeared. A black van showed up and took him away because he was talking about Barack Obama is the same as, George Bush, that type of thing, just messing with me. But I got out of the military, and I decided, you know what, I'm never going to go back to that again, no matter what.
Well, I want to address something to that effect, okay? And I know that there's a certain bunch of guys that listen to your broadcast and they like to make fun of you to the other soldiers and stuff. Let me tell the soldiers that might hear this broadcast, let me tell you something about Sergeant Brooks. He's a shining example of what you should be. So when you hear your retarded NCO telling you that he's a jagoff or whatever else they might say, just remember, they're brainwashed morons. And if you actually want to be better, you want to be part of something bigger, the reason that you supposedly joined the military, you want to better mankind, then be more like Sergeant Brooks. Don't be like the idiot NCOs that are sitting there going, because that's Pavlovian. That's a conditioned response, like a dog. You really want to be associated with a dog? That's my personal take. Go on, Ryan.
Well, hey, thanks for adding that, Popeye. And, that's one thing that I saw, and I know we'll have some more time to talk about this later in the broadcast, but just the quality and the caliber of people that are in the military today, even from 2007, it's a noticeably different, and not for the good. The military is really hurting right now because they've got people who have been deployed 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And they have to live with things that, fortunately, I don't. I never killed any children. I never looked a man in his face and saw the white of his eyes as I took his life. I never had to do that. I was blown up in a couple of IEDs. Did see some of my friends get hurt very badly. If I did kill somebody, it was from long range, which is how they prefer to do it nowadays. You shoot somebody with a 50 cal from 600, 700 meters away. It's not the same as close quarter combat. So I had enough combat to get a taste of it, and I'm not claiming to be Rambo or anything like that. I consider myself very lucky that I'm able to talk about those things, and I don't have to take medicine to go to sleep or have night terrors or anything like that. But I guess what I'm trying to say, Popeye, is that there are still some very good leaders in the military, people that I will always respect. And just, I used to really look up to them and want to idolize them. However, in the past few months, just kind of talking to them here and again, I feel like, they so easily buy into lies that it's almost made it so I kind of have lost some respect for them. I mean, when they say that they detest the commander-in-chief, but then they buy the Osama bin Laden death story, that's like, to me, it's like a double negative, like you hate the guy, you don't believe anything he says, but then when he tells you something you want to hear, then you believe it. Building 7, I'm not even going to look into that. I've had soldiers try to make up reasoning for all the lies that the government has given to them. Like, I literally had a soldier tell me, he said, Brooks, you don't think that Osama bin Laden had, co-intel ready to go for 9/11? So after the buildings fell, the people who wanted to ask questions, they would go to places like architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, and that was set up by Osama bin Laden to distract people and to lie to them. You don't think that the terrorists put the explosions in the buildings or put the explosives in the buildings? And I mean, the guy was literally making up crazier conspiracy theories than what the government has told us. But it just shows people don't want to admit they've been lied to and tricked and fooled. And it's really hard for military guys, because then they wake up and say, wow, I'm a part of the problem. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do with myself? And
that's why there's so many blowing their brains out. Because there's a lot of them that come back and realize what they took part in, or they can't deal with what they've seen, or they realize that they're contracted out and that the government now owns them because they signed a contract. I mean, that's a sobering reality. And then a lot of people can't, this younger generation, they're not mentally prepared to handle tough times. I'm not picking on them.
You're right.
It's a fact. I mean, this is just a fact. They've been dumbed down and emotionally dumbed down. They've been taught to not deal with their emotions and rather react to them and on them. And people can't deal with anything anymore. These younger generation, dude. That's why I say, I really respect you, because not only are you a combat vet, vet to vet thing, but I respect you because you're a young guy who's got a really good head on his shoulders and a grasp like I have not seen in the younger generation. Because it's your generation and the younger generations that are going to be the future leaders of this country. Okay?
Right.
And we need intelligent people. And normally, dude, when I deal with people that are your age, it's like I get frustrated. Even my age, but the younger generation, they seem to be really a lot more disconnected. Like, there's this bigger disconnect, even in my generation of vets to your generation of vets. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just there's this huge chasm between.
You're right, and I mean, the war on terror has really worn down our military much more than what our idiot mainstream media tells us. I can remember times, Popeye, when Fox News would be coming to our little base to do a mission with us, and if Fox News showed up, we would have a Stryker. For anybody who doesn't know, that's like a mix between a Humvee and a tank, urban warfare vehicle. We would have a Stryker ready to go that a private spent hours pretty much cleaning tooth and nail, to get it looking brand new. Not a speck of dust could be in this vehicle. And it would be sitting ready to go on standby, waiting for the Fox News to show up. And then when Fox News would show up, we would change our mission to some type of happy, feel-good, go out there and shake hands with Afghans and just have a good time. I mean, even the mainstream media doesn't get a good idea of what's really going on. It takes weeks of preparation. If any type of congressman or senator or general shows up, it's ridiculous the stuff they do to prep. They don't get to even see the real side of the war over there.
Yeah, they don't know the real side of war at all. And see, this is what pisses me off, dude. They get this younger generation, they suck them in with Call of Duty and video games like that. I know a lady I've had on here on the broadcast before, a couple times, her nephew, she even talks about this in the one interview I did with her. It was either her nephew or her cousin. I think it was her cousin, joined the Army. And the kid, he got medals for shooting in boot camp, so I'm assuming he qualified expert. And they asked him, "Where'd you learn how to shoot?" And he said, "I never shot a gun in my life. I grew up in New York. In the city, we didn't have a chance to shoot outdoors. But where'd you learn how to shoot?" "From playing Call of Duty."
Oh, yeah. And, there's units in the United States Army right now who, depending on your command, I suppose, they actually will qualify that as training time. Get your platoon together, get them in the barracks, get a few Xbox Lives going, and you've got 10 or 11 guys all playing this shoot-'em-up game, running around pretty much simulating exactly what their eyes are going to see downrange. And, I'm just thinking of my old roommate I had. Who was a great guy downrange, former Army Ranger. I mean, he was really there for me, when I was having tough times. But we'd come home, and all this guy would do is sit there and play Xbox and play Call of Duty. And he would be screaming and yelling on his little headset at children, saying, "I do this in real life," running around, shooting people, doing all this stuff. And that's when I thought to myself, wow, I'm glad I gave up video games, man. It's just a waste.
I'm a video game nerd myself. I grew up playing video games, and my Xbox, I've told you this thing's got probably like a 3-inch pile of dust on it because I just don't play the thing. And right. I was actually told by as I told you, the listeners know, I had surgery a couple months back on my hand, and I was told by my physical therapist that actually the movement of the stick would be good for my thumb. I still don't do it. I just don't have enough time. I consider that to be like if I have nothing else to do, and that includes chores, building something if I can, anything. It's like the last thing on my laundry list of things to do. Yet there are people that literally, how many marriages have you seen or relationships wrecked because the husband or boyfriend won't stop playing Xbox?
You don't even want to know, brother. It was incredible to me because I believe me, I used to be a gamer too. We come up, your generation and mine even more than yours, in video games, PlayStation 3s, Xbox 360s, and the gaming is so realistic. It is entertaining and it can be fun. I know myself, and I have an addictive personality where I get tunnel vision and I only focus on one thing. And I know better. I can't get around video games because I'll get sucked into them and I'll play them, until I beat every record, every score. And then I'm done with it a week later and I say to myself, what did I just accomplish? Nothing. And it was Afghanistan where I got blown up in an IED that showed me how precious life is. And that's where I pledged to myself right then and there when I was standing in the 50 cal turret, pretty much convinced I was going to die that day. I said, I'm never going to play video games again because anything I can do is better. And that's just me personally. But at the same time, you're on the money. If you go out there, if you're single guys, go out there and tell a girl that you don't play video games and they will just melt. Like, what? You don't play video games? Oh my gosh. It's like you're an endangered species. And so many soldiers I know, all they do, including me before I deployed, Saturday mornings, you're not at work anymore. Boom. You wake up early just to get your video game time in. Video games, video games, video games. It's pretty disturbing.
That is disturbing. And I saw a generation, my generation leading down into yours, this uptick of just totally unplugging from the world. Have you seen these people that they play video games for like 3-4 days straight, dude, and they just drop dead?
It's ridiculous. Yeah, I've heard the stories. I covered them when I first started coming out in the radio world back in July. And yeah, I mean, we have soldiers who that's what they will do. They will play video games all weekend. We have to give safety briefs. The Army actually considers playing video games to be like a problem in the military, because so many soldiers aren't doing anything in their free time. They're not going out and seeing out here in Washington like Mount Rainier or Mount St. Helens or going to the National Forest. They're sitting in their room playing video games, eating GMO food, getting drunk, you know what I mean? And the Army's worried about it.
They should be. It's not a healthy condition. It's not at all. But see, you know, your generation and my generation, when I was growing up, we were told to go outside and play. By the time you guys came around, your generation was, oh my God, you have to be scared of everything. You can't go outside. The sky is falling. And now it's even worse.
Right.
I mean, kids can't play unattended. Dude, when I was a kid, my mother would wake me up at like 8:30 in the morning and say, get your ass out of bed, get your clothes on, eat some breakfast, go find something to do for the day. You're not sitting in the house watching TV all day. No. Go play. That's how it was. Now you do that, you're a criminal.
Way. Yeah, I mean, we get in this mentality, this trendy mentality where we need to treat children like they're adults. So if your child wants to sit inside and play video games all day, then you don't have the right to tell him otherwise, or her. And it's just pretty sad, you know. Having a child myself just a few weeks ago, I mean, it's just unbelievable to think of how much the kids, from the newborns to people that are 26 years old, 18-year-olds, we are under attack, a psychological attack, you know, and it's just unbelievable. And it's hard. A lot of people will not unplug themselves because it's so in your face. I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah, and then you see it in, you know, what's going on with the soldiers today. Again, when you see the soldiers killing themselves, the suicide rate, and it's all across all branches, not just the Army. See, it's amazing. They focus on just the Army numbers, and then everybody's like, well, that's not too bad, the whole military. And then you're like, no, that's just one branch. How come they don't report on the other branches? You just don't hear about that stuff.
Yeah, they don't want to do it, so it'll be even worse.
When I was in the Coast Guard, there were people that killed themselves in the Coast Guard. I mean, one guy blew his brains out in the barracks. Another one, and they don't know how he snuck the gun on the base because everything's locked up in the armory. But he somehow got his hands on a weapon, probably, you know, off base, brought it on, and then one guy hung himself in the paint locker on the ship I used to be on. He went down. It's the forwardmost lower compartment in the ship, all the way down in the front of the bow at the very bottom. And he went in there and hung himself. And he hung himself from the scuttle, which is the tiny little hatch in the big hatch itself, the one that makes the little hole with you go down into the ladder. Well, he hung himself from that thing. They couldn't even open it. So that kind of stuff happens all the time. You know, you and I talked about people breaking their own legs and stuff, having their wives run them over so they wouldn't have to go on deployment. That's a symptom. That's not a problem. That's a symptom of a much larger problem. I'm going to cut us off, Ryan, because we got the break sneaking up on us. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. I got another hour and a half with Sergeant Brooks and myself. You don't want to miss it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. My guest tonight, Sergeant Ryan Brooks from the Sound of Freedom. I like when you shorten it, you call it SOF, Soldier of Fortune. Maybe you're a soldier of freedom, Ryan.
I like it.
We'll call you Soldier of Freedom instead of Soldier of Fortune because that makes you sound like a friggin' mercenary when you say the other one. I'm going to play this clip from ABC News really quick, and I want to get your take on it, especially considering you are an Afghan war vet and you've been through hell and back yourself.
Now to Afghanistan, and a stark reminder tonight of the human cost of war. An attack at a checkpoint left 2 Americans dead, one of them a serviceman. The 2,000th U.S. military death.
I find that interesting. Only one of them was a serviceman. So what was the other guy? OGA? CIA?
Probably.
I wonder if there's more to the story with that. All right, I'll play the rest of the clip and shut up. See, I can't even play a clip about this without interrupting.
Since the war began. ABC's Muhammad Leela is in the region tonight for us. Muhammad?
David, some officials are describing this as a firefight between American troops and the very Afghan soldiers they were working alongside. For reasons that aren't yet clear, it appears as though there was some sort of confrontation at one of the many checkpoints that American troops are often stationed at. There was an exchange of gunfire. At first, the coalition called it an insider attack at the hands of Afghan forces, but later they said the Taliban might have been involved. Now, whatever the reason, the 2,000th American killed in Afghanistan is certainly a very grim milestone. This comes just as we are days away from the 11-year anniversary of combat in Afghanistan, and there is another number to consider. 68,000 American troops are now in Afghanistan, increasingly under threat not just from their enemies, but also their so-called allies.
Now, let me ask you a question. First of all, is that number that he gave accurate? Is that only 68,000, or aren't there more troops over there?
I was just going to say, I mean, from the numbers I've read, we still have upwards of 80 to 90,000 troops there. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they're just kind of telling us what they want us to hear, more or less. I mean, there's definitely more than 68,000 troops there last time I checked. That to me, I heard that and was like, whoa, what?
Yeah, sounds like he's a little full of it right there, if you ask me.
You know, Popeye, just hearing that stuff, man, it just shakes me up because my old unit is in Afghanistan right now, and a lot of them talk to me through online. You know, they message me and stuff, and they're asking me, like, man, how is it? Are you doing okay? Like, how are you doing, man? Because another thing they do in the military is they make it seem like if you get out, there's no hope for you. You're done. Like, the economy is horrible. You'll never recover. Get used to working at McDonald's, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not saying everybody does this in the Army, but they definitely make it easier for you to stay in than get out. And the guys over there are absolutely, they hate it over there. I mean, they thought the last deployment we did was bad. This one's even worse. They're not even getting supplies anymore as far as your basic hygiene items, things like that. Because now so many green on blue attacks are happening where the Afghans that we're training fire on us. They don't tell us on the news that, you know what, Americans, as far as your regular military, we are not allowed to go into their villages or have any interactions with any of the populace without Afghan police or security of some sort. So when they say that we've halted, activity with, or halted, missions or whatnot with the Green Force, with the Afghans that we're training, that means that we are being severely hindered. We're not even able to leave the base. And if we are, we're not able to do anything but maybe sit around and spy on people, which is something I did a lot of when we were downrange. I mean,
speaking of spying, didn't they have a balloon that they spend bazillions and bazillions of dollars on, and instead of spying on the Taliban, they were looking for people planting roadside bombs, they spied on whether or not you guys... Would you tell me if they were wearing goggles?
Right. And that was one of the things that I was just like, this is a joke, because the particular route that we had in our sector, we were in between Kandahar and Pakistan, okay? And until our unit got there, no American forces had ever been in that area. So they were pretty much ready and waiting for us. And this particular route, it was the most heavily IED'd route, from what I'm told by guys in the military, the most heavily IED'd route in the entire region. And that was the route that a few of my friends had been blown up on. I had driven over IEDs on that route, and the vehicle behind me just so happened to set it off. I actually walked down that route a few times. One of the times, we found 13 IEDs. Each time, our metal detector, it was not working correctly, and my sergeant was like, "Oh no, that thing's fine. Operator error. Just keep moving." Well, Papa, I mean, it doesn't matter what anybody's take on religion is or whatever, but whoever is, the creator of the universe, so to say, was looking out for me, because I stepped on 13 IEDs and was kicking them, literally kicking the rocks that they were buried under. And the only thing that saved me was the fact that they were for vehicles. They were pressure plate IEDs for a couple hundred pounds, not, well, I'd say maybe a couple 1,000 pounds, because, with your gear on, you're a couple hundred. But, I'd step on 13 IEDs. None of them would go off. The next day, they'd catch a guy. The Afghans would. We never would. And then he'd dig up 13 IEDs. And that's where I just thought to myself, this is unbelievable. But not getting away from your question, yes, they have these spy blimps that they use there. And I'm sorry, I don't know the exact name for it, everybody. But if you just type in, military blimp, you'll be able to see them. They're these big white blimps. They fly them a couple hundred feet in the air. They're now using them in New Jersey to spy on Americans in America. But we had this spy blimp, And it's over $1 million. The optics on this thing are unbelievable. They gave us this blimp and said, get it up. We're going to spy on the route. Route Fern was what we called it. That was the code name, Route Fern. So the blimp was supposed to keep eyes on Route Fern at all times. And then your non-combat arms guys would sit in their little tents and control the blimp all day and look at the cameras. Well, they started getting tired of watching the road. So under a particular Sergeant Major's orders, they started using the cameras on this $1 million blimp. They didn't watch our route anymore. They spied on the base, and they had a problem with soldiers not wearing their eye protection because that's a safety requirement, your personal safety gear, and it was a requirement. You have to wear eye pro at all times. So they started using this thing to spy on soldiers with infrared and thermal recognition, things like that, so they could literally see at nighttime, of course, and they're just using it to catch soldiers who weren't wearing their eye protection at nighttime, and people were getting in trouble for this. Meanwhile, my platoon or another platoon would go out the next day and guess what route we were on when we got hit by another IED. I mean, that's another thing where I was just like, this is unbelievable. But hey, I mean, truth is stranger than fiction, right?
And that's the stuff that woke you up, right? Along with you were telling me a lot of times you guys would end up being forced to, you'd catch somebody and you'd be forced to let them go, which is catch and release doesn't make any sense if you're trying to quote unquote stop terrorism.
Right. I mean, we would get intel from Afghan village elders and stuff, guys who we knew that they were telling us good information like, hey, if you look over at that mountain ridge tonight, you're going to see 30 Taliban on mules come over the border from Pakistan, and they're coming over here to set up IEDs and attack you. And we say, all right, so we would act on that intel. We'd go out, and as a scout, you know, we would have all these long-range surveillance equipment. And we would use our high-speed, high-tech technology and be watching the border from 30 kilometers away in pitch black dark. And we can see, literally, 30 guys coming over the border right when they said they would on donkeys. And we would call up to headquarters like, hey, we have eyes on. These guys are like 99% confirmed enemy. We've got credible intel, yada, yada. You know, can we call for fire? Can we go engage them? Should we drive up to them and see what they're doing? And every time that happened, we would get a call from higher-ups back at the base saying, no, stand down, come back to base. And within a few days, guess what was happening? More IEDs are being put out. And it was just like, you know, that was once again stuff that I wrote down so I would never forget it because I was shocked. I could not figure out why we were doing that. And then when I would go to my superiors and try to talk about it, they would literally give me kind of that programming, like you said, just like, oh, well, we're not trained to think. Don't worry about it, you know. You just got to keep your soldiers safe. Focus on your soldiers. Don't think about that stuff. We got another mission tomorrow. And I used to, you know, go with that, but eventually the dam broke. And I said, you know what, I'm not going to believe this crap anymore. This is ridiculous.
And then what happened when that happened? Did you right away have like diarrhea of the mouth with truth? Because I know I did that.
Not in Afghanistan. I mean, I had a lot, and there was only a couple of other soldiers who kind of started to awaken, rather, in Afghanistan like I did. And none of them re-enlisted. They all got out. And one of them, you know, he got really depressed about what was going on. He saw that we were risking our lives every day for absolute nonsense. Popeye, we would do missions like we would have to go to one village and pick up and use American taxpayer dollars to buy food from that village and then drive it across the countryside and risk getting blown up and attacked to another village and give them the food because those two villages didn't get along. And that was with U.S. taxpayer dollar. Not to mention that as soon as I saw the big dust clouds coming in the distance, they would have American-only price tags, if you will. So then they'd ramp up the price a couple $1,000 or, you know, whatever it was in their Afghan currency. But they would rape and pillage us because they knew we'd pay top dollar. We would use American taxpayer dollars to buy it, and then we'd risk our lives to drive across the area to another village and get blown up on the way just to give people food because these two villages didn't want to talk to each other. That's the stuff people are dying for over there. And it's just, it's sickening. But what I'm getting at, I guess, is I wrote the things down, but it still was just almost too much to take in. I still believe 9/11 was an outside job. I still thought Obama could change it. I was reading a lot of Rockefeller Foundation books, believe it or not, books that had been published by, you know, subsidiary groups of the Rockefeller Foundation, books like the president's, one of his favorite books, what's it called? The Post-Industrial America or whatever.
By Fareed Zakaria.
Yeah, that plagiarist douchebag.
Yeah, I know exactly who he is.
I read that book, and I'll never forget. After reading it, I was like, wow, this just makes a lot of sense. I mean, yeah, we need green energy. And, I mean, I read books talking about how Obama didn't know what he was getting himself into, a lot like Bill Clinton, a lot like Jimmy Carter, and that he needs another 4 years to really square it away. And I just ate that stuff up. I mean,
wow, you drank the Kool-Aid.
Oh, hardcore, man. It sparked energy and the desire to learn, that addiction to learn that our schools are totally failing at. It sparked that over there. And then when I came home, you know, I was just so happy to be in America. I stopped reading. I didn't really pay attention too much. I was on this big spiel about education and how if anybody can, of course, America's facing tough times, but if anybody can fix it, we can. We're the greatest nation in the world. But that's when a few months later, I found Building 7. And then from there, the walls just came crashing down around me. That was in the spring of 2011. And then I was what you're saying. I was that guy. Everywhere I went, I started asking my fellow NCOs, like, hey, do you know about Building 7? Do you know about this? I mean, have you ever heard of the USS Liberty? I mean, what's going on with the Gulf of Tonkin incident in Vietnam? You know, what's with the Iraq war? I mean, why did we even go?
Did you ever see Iraq for Sale? You ever see that movie?
I've never seen that, and that's what I have on my playlist. I need to watch it.
Watch that, and if any of your friends listen to this broadcast, guys, watch the movie. You can go to federaljack.com, go to the Truth movie section. There's links there for a ton of movies. Iraq for Sale is one of them. Go watch the movie. You'll see these guys that were dying in Iraq were getting killed because they were escorting and guarding trucks that were empty. They were just getting sent out there so that they could charge for the load. And they didn't care if the truck broke down. If they got a flat tire, there were no spares. They would just set the truck on fire.
Right.
I mean, just a waste, an epic waste of money. And when you look at it, that's a waste of human life. You're killing these kids. And this is what pisses me off the most. Okay? They're taking the future generation, the kids that still give a crap, and there are people that just join up now. Again, it's a complete different generation, but there still is that desire to be patriotic, and they're just that's what feeds this grist mill, and they scoop these kids up at a young age because they know if they were in their late 30s like I am, I'd be like, eat me, you know. Right. Now, don't get me wrong. If a foreign country invaded our country and were killing our citizens unmercifully, I'd be the first one up at the front line. I would put my life on the line to defend my fellow people here, the guy on the right and the guy on the left. I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with is dying for bullshit. And I have a problem with watching my friends die for bullshit, which I have a lot of friends now that are now dead. And that's one of the things that led me to start questioning the Bush administration. There were things I didn't like about him after he got, because I voted for Bush. I was a douchebag. I voted for him in 2000 and I voted for him in 2004. But hey, you know, I'm Popeye and I'm an ex-douchebag, okay?
At least you can admit it, man. I mean, so many people don't even want to come to grips and admit that.
Well, see, that's the first step, Ryan, is admitting that there's a problem. And that's what I didn't like. When he came in, he was doing the exact opposite of things that he said he was going to do, and that kind of shattered me, my paradigm a little bit. Not like me, but I was like, wow, this guy's a lying sack of shit, too. So then I started, I already didn't trust the government, and I was like, well, I shouldn't have bought into it. And then I looked into it further. And because after I had served, I had, I don't know if you ever went through this, but, and I part of it was also because of 9/11 and everything else, and because of my proximity, and because I helped out with the Red Cross and what I did down there. But the point is, I had to deal with this issue of, and a lot of people that I know that were first responders in the area know what I'm talking about. Some of us had this like guilt for a long time, like there should have been something we could have been able to do more. And when I got medically discharged, I still felt like, I had friends that were dying, and I felt like, man, it's that guilt trip they lay on you, and it stays with you. And for a long, long time, I felt like I should still, why am I here? Why do I have the freedom to run around, and people I know are now dead? Am I a piece of shit? These are kind of thoughts you have, and this is the kind of things that go through your head, and this is why people blow their effing brains out. Luckily, I was mentally strong enough to get through this, and then once I got through that, that's when my whole, this whole political thing started to get shattered for me, and I was like, all right, I don't like him anymore. Let me go back and let me check and let me see what the guys on the ground have to say. I want to learn. That's the least I can do for them. I owe them that. And the more stuff I started to read written by the guys on the ground, the more stuff that I started to uncover. Ironically, I came across the stuff. I talked to Dr. Dahlia Wasfi. When she came on, her husband, who ironically she met only within the past year, he was a former Marine who was on the ground during Phantom Fury 2 in Fallujah. Right. And when I had her on, I was interviewing her, and I told her how I had read books written by Marines that were on the ground that said when they would come across machine gun nests and stuff, it'd be these Chechnyan terrorists, and they'd have like bags of cocaine, and they would have been scar-facing it, you know what I mean? And, and
absolutely.
They were surprised that they were finding all these drugs. And then you do a little research and you come to find out that Fallujah wasn't just the terrorist hub. It was the hub of illegal drug activity that was going on there. And that's one of the reasons why they flattened that city and they leveled it like they did. They were destroying a lot of the evidence of what they were doing there. Because remember, the drugs fund the black ops. That's what the drug trade is for. That's why that shit will never get shut down. And the more I started to look into this and I started to understand this, I was like, wait a minute. And later on, again, I read these books 5-6 years ago, and later on, I interviewed Dr. Dahlia Wasfi about 6-7 months ago. When I brought it up on air, she said, I hadn't heard of that, but my husband Ross was there. I'll ask him. She emailed me that night. She said, Ross confirmed what you said. They were running drugs through Fallujah. And I said, right. and I learned that from boots on the ground, Ryan. So once I saw that, I said, wow, I'm getting a whole different narrative. I started to look into the truth about the war. And as I started to look into it is when, through a friend of mine, I had bumped into the whole 9/11 issue because I really hadn't paid attention to it. When I first got into 9/11, I looked at it and was like, no, there's no way. Okay, I believe about the war, but that's just insane. And by the time I was done, I schooled myself, and I ended up, I got into kind of to be like, all right, I'll get the truth about Iraq, and then I'll be able to tell these nuts that think 9/11 was done by the government to go F themselves. And by the time I got down that rabbit hole to the bottom, I was like, oh, wow, I got schooled.
Right. The more you know, the worse it gets when you go into it with that mentality, like, I'm going to prove these people wrong, because you can't find explanations. You can't find, stuff to back up what these people have told us and lied to us about. And just hearing what you're saying, man, I mean, I had guys who trained me who were in the invasion of Fallujah, and stuff they would tell me, I feel horrible for them. I mean, these guys had to shoot children. They would have children take pins out of the grenade and run up and try to hand it to the soldier. That means you have about 10 or 15 seconds before that thing detonates. What are you going to do? You're getting shot at everywhere. There's explosions going on, all this stuff. They chose to kill the child. There's guys I know who have had to kill children, and it's literally in a me or them situation. And also what you're saying, Popeye, the survivor's guilt. I hear people say that this is a big conspiracy about soldiers killing themselves and that they're just covering up for being killed in battle. That is an absolute bold-faced. That is a theory. That is nonsense. That's coming from people who have not served, who have not been in to see it for what it is. Can you imagine the survivor's guilt? If you were driving a Humvee, that was your mission, to drive a Humvee every day, and your best friend sat next to you every day, and the one day you said, hey man, let's switch it up. You drive, I'll sit in the passenger seat. And then that day, you hit an IED and the driver dies. Your best friend. And that should have been you. Can you imagine? It shakes me up just thinking about that, because I know guys that happened to. And they come home from deployment, and what do? They drink their sorrows away. The Army is just a career. They just go with it. They are being just totally destroyed. And to make it even worse, we also have an entitlement mentality in this country, and the military is not exempt from this. I've had soldiers tell me, I can't wait to go, shoot Occupy Wall Street protesters. I don't care. I don't care about the Constitution. I don't care about their rights. They're dirty scum hippies, and I'll kill them if I'm ordered to. I mean, that's the type of stuff. It's like a cancer, and we have it everywhere, including the military.
Well, I've talked about that, Ryan. If you embrace the dark side, and you once you touch that, and you allow it's like I equate it to when Peter Parker he touched Venom for the first time, and the symbiote climbed up his arm, and it started to engulf his entire being. And then it changed his whole personality, and he started to do dark things. We all have, it's like the old Indian proverb. The old Indian's talking to the young Indian, and the boy says to him, he's talking to him about the two wolves that are inside each of us. And the old man says to the little kid, there are two wolves in each of us, a light one and a dark one, and they're constantly battling one another. And the little kid says to the little Indian says to the other one, well, which one wins? And the older, wiser one says, the one you feed. So if you allow yourself to touch into that negativity, that dark side, it will consume you. And I've tried to explain this so people understand, because there's this huge divide. It's always, I point out a lot of negative things about war crimes and stuff, but at the same token, I want people to be able to connect with that person and understand why they did it, so you're not blaming it on them, because when you look at it in the bigger picture, it's a symptom of a much larger problem.
Absolutely.
And we're attacking the symptom instead of the problem. And I've been told I'm an apologist for that, but I'm not being an apologist. I'm being a realist. That's just the reality of the situation. I'm not looking at it on a microscopic level. I'm looking at it on a much larger level. All right, I'm going to cut us off because we got the top of the hour break coming up. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. Hour 2 coming up with Sergeant Ryan Brooks. You don't want to miss it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. It is the Monday edition, October 1st. My brain is somewhere else. I forgot that the date changed. October 1st, 2012. Monday edition. Tonight, I'm hanging out with Sergeant Ryan Brooks. He does a radio broadcast here on Orion 5 days a week. Ryan, what time is it? 7 to 9, if I'm correct, Eastern Standard, PM?
7 to 9 Eastern Time. You got that right.
And you discuss the same things that we're talking about tonight, plus a ton of other stuff. Ryan's a very awake individual, and I know he's got some guests lined up. Your shows, I like your show because even when you're tired and you're beat, you still try to, come with this energy. I think it comes natural. I don't think you're trying. I just think it comes natural the way you come across, because you're speaking from a level of experience that many people your age do not have. And right. Again, to the people in the military, you need to pay attention to him. You need to listen to him. I wish there were more, Ryan Brookses out there. I hope there are more people that are awake, that are in the military, that are telling the truth to their soldiers or their sailors or their airmen or their Marines, because they need to be told this stuff. They do. Otherwise, they're just going to end up becoming a bunch of brain-dead drones that get, go kill.
Right.
And you don't want that. You don't want to lose your humanity, because at one point in your life, you're going to come back and get back in touch with it when you get back home. And even the guys that are like, oh, I don't care, man, I don't care. Eventually, it'll catch up to them. And it'll end up being the bottom of a bottle or the bottom of a pill bottle or, cocaine or whatever their poison of choice is to make the hurt and pain go away. But eventually, it'll catch up to them. You can't run from the darkness. It will engulf your soul. I've talked about this hundreds of times. I've seen my friends lose it because they wouldn't accept things. I've seen guys, even guys I don't know, I've seen lose it because they couldn't deal with the demons. And you know what? The other side of the coin is we shouldn't demonize these people. They are humans just like us. They've been used and abused. And because of the mental conditioning that's going on, you see, instead of looking at someone and going, well, they're freaking idiots, whatever, they signed up for it, they shouldn't have, they killed people, whatever, blah, blah. Yes, but that's a symptom of a much larger problem. I understand your anger, okay, but to take the blame and completely place it on the symptom and not the problem that's causing that symptom is wrong. See, if we fix the problem, that symptom will no longer be an issue. It'll go away. We need to stop putting our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines in foreign countries. We need to bring them home. We need to stop this culture of hatred and bigotry. That's one of the ways that they get away with having us kill people, is because they teach everybody across all 5 branches that whatever enemy of the day it is, they find ways to dehumanize them. In this case, it's Haji or Raghead or Dune Coon or whatever other little moniker they want to come up with. And they use that to help you dehumanize the enemy. So it's easier for you to squeeze that trigger because, hey, they're just a raghead, right? So you can just pop them. Or in Vietnam, they were gooks or whatever. And Ryan, you know I'm not just blowing smoke here or pontificating. This is, you speak from personal experience. You were combat on the boots on the ground.
Well, just hearing you say that stuff, Popeye, I mean, I can't say it enough. You're right on the money. You're hitting the nail right on the head. I mean, it's the way it is. I consider myself very lucky that I had great leadership joining when I was in the military, as far as training me to be a combat soldier, training me to react to contact and to not freak out or panic. When I got blown up, I did exactly what I was supposed to do, return fire, tried to navigate our vehicle out of the kill sack, tried to make radio communications, et cetera, et cetera. I saw body parts flying around. I tasted blood in my mouth, and none of that even fazed me. When I saw a chunk of leg from the knee down right next to me on my striker, right up on the top of the roof, because my lieutenant's leg had been blown off from the back of the striker to the middle of it, I just laughed and said, wow, there's a big leg up here. Now, I didn't know that it was his leg, but it didn't even faze me. It felt like it was a mannequin leg. No, that was a real live leg. And I just am so thankful, or lucky rather, that I didn't have to see my lieutenant, who did not know that he had lost both legs because he had adrenaline. He tried to jump out of the back of his truck when we came to a stop. And he had nothing but bones sticking out from under his knees. So when he jumped out of the back, he pretty much lawn darted his bones right into the ground and fell over, and that's when he realized he had no legs. I guess what I'm getting at here is when you see things like that happen, when you have friends of yours killed or hurt like that, it's personal. And it makes it all that more easier to hate and to get revenge. I mean, I wrote down in clear detail exactly what happened that day. And I wrote down at the end, you can still see how brainwashed I am. These people are going to pay. That was my first mission that I was ever on. That happened to me. And I said, we just got here. We're going to raise hell. How dare they do this? Yada, yada, yada. I look at it differently now. But at the same time, I mean, I wanted to put this out there, Popeye. I want everybody, if they have some time, to look into 5th Stryker Brigade. They are no more. They changed the name because we were so bad. The Army knew us as the Brigade from Hell. We were the guys who, our sister unit, that we were in the same brigade, and then from their brigades there's units. I was in the 8-1 Cavalry unit. And then we had 117 Infantry and 423 Infantry. Just look those up. 5th Stryker Brigade, 423 Infantry, 117 Infantry. And you'll see that these guys lost, until recently, the most of any units in the War on Terror. They were literally losing 10 to 15 guys a day. When we first got there, they were hitting 900-pound IEDs that would totally turn their striker into molten metal, and there's like 10 guys in there who would be vaporized. So now, if everybody can picture that, you just get there, you've lost 20-plus guys in 2 days, and then you go into a village. And these Afghans, especially the bad ones, even they know the rules of engagement. They know that we cannot go in their houses unless we invite them. So I want you guys to try to put yourself in the soldier's shoes, where you've lost 21 friends, you've been in country for about 2 weeks, you go to a village, and a guy comes out of his little hut and he says, hey, did you guys hit a bomb last week? And you're like, yeah, I did. Why? Oh, how many of your friends did I kill? And you're like, excuse what? And then they run inside their house. And they know that if we follow all the rules that we have, we can't go in there. What would you do? Now, I'm not supporting the fact that these guys cut off their fingers and mailed them home. I'm not supporting the fact that they would kill random Afghans and then tie them to the front of their vehicles with barbed wire and drive them around on other villages. But imagine if you lost 21 friends who you grew up and trained with. We trained for 3 years to deploy, Popeye, which is more than units get. They only get usually about a year before they deploy. We had 3. We were, according to our own colonel, the most technologically advanced fighting force in the history of the world. We had all the high-tech gizmos, everything. And as soon as we get there, decimated, 20-plus KIA, and then a few days later, you have an Afghan, doesn't matter if he's a Taliban or not, just say, hey, I made those bombs, I killed your friends. Would you be able to restrain yourself, especially, if those were your friends? And I'm just trying to play both sides for everybody out there, but that's the stuff that we're experiencing. I've pulled over, we've done random flash checkpoints, which is exactly what the mobile TSA units do here now. They're not ICE teams. Popeye, what are they called? TSA that drives around.
The fat quick reaction force?
Right. They have it's not ICE.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Their little
Viper
douchebag
teams.
Yeah, the Viper teams. I thought you were talking about like quick reaction forces in Afghanistan for a second.
The Viper
Sorry.
teams do exactly what the troops do in Iraq and Afghanistan. They drive around. They set up what we call flash traffic control checkpoints where, boom, now we have a traffic checkpoint. Every vehicle's getting searched. Get out of the car, confiscating weapons, getting your fingerprints, getting your iris scans. And while we were doing these, we would catch people who would say, we'd be like, hey, where are you going? And they're like, oh, we're going to the Arghandab Valley, which the Arghandab Valley was like the hell of our entire area. That was the absolute worst place. We didn't even want to go there. Only bad people go there, according to our intel. And this guy, he's got the black eyeshadow, because they wear black eyeshadow to try to make him look more scary. He had the little Muslim half moon on his hand. A lot of the Taliban do that. And he gets out, and he's being all bold, and just like, you can see the hate in their eyes, looking at me, saying, just looking at me, just like with this angry, he wasn't scared at all. And I said, hey, where are you going? He says, I'm going to the Arghandab Valley. And we're like, oh, yeah? Oh, really? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to go have a picnic. What the hell are you going to do about it? I mean, this is what soldiers have to put up with. And I'm not advocating killing for no reason, but to be trained to kill and then have so many of your friends die, and then to have these people talk trash to you.
Well, let's reverse the position. Let's take a foreign government. Let's put China, for instance, right? Let's take China. Let's have their troops in the United States occupying the United States like we do Afghanistan, doing random drone bombings, bombing the shit out of everything. That we have NATO coming in here with them, doing whatever.
Wouldn't stand for this at all.
No, we wouldn't. And what would happen? You don't think that kind of tension would happen where Americans would be like, F you, you slope-eyed bastard, and then it would be again that the racism, they have to push that because that helps dehumanize the quote-unquote enemy, and then they'd go in there and they'd be fighting and shooting and killing. It would happen without a damn doubt. It would happen. It would definitely happen. Okay, so for us to say, oh, those dumb ragheads, we bring them freedom, they're goddamn ungrateful. We bring them freedom. Really? Think about this for a second. We're using like $1 million cruise missiles on a $10 tent. To quote, what's his name? The jerk off that lied about the weapons of mass destruction, Colin Powell. I have no respect for that man either. None. I have no respect for most of these people. I don't. Because unfortunately, the good leaders don't get to the high positions of power. The only people that get to the positions of power are the sociopaths who are willing to sell people out. And I'm going to tell you what, vets, active duty, I know you guys listen to Ryan, go watch the movie Beyond Treason. Watch it. I gave Ryan a copy of it. If he wants, he can, pass out copies. You can burn copies of it. There's no copyright protection on that version, so you could copy it and pass it out and give it out to whoever you want. And these guys need to see this movie. You're being poisoned. You think that I come on in the airwaves and talk about this stuff because I like to do it or I like to rehash this kind of thing? You think Ryan talks about this kind of stuff because he wants to talk about it? Or because maybe he thinks he's cool to talk about it? No. This is horrific shit that we're talking about. But you know what? You need to be told what you're being exposed to. Someone needs to be looking out for you. Someone needs to be honest with you. And if your superiors won't do it, then we will. I know it sucks. I know you don't want to hear it. I know the messenger gets shit on. It's all right. But you know what? At least you're being told the truth. At least now you can make an informed decision. Go research the anthrax vaccine. I'm telling you, just watch Beyond Treason. It'll teach you about DU and the anthrax vaccines, amongst other things.
And just to touch on what you're talking about, Popeye, with the anthrax shots, if you know what you're looking for, I mean, if you're a soldier and you've been in for a couple of years, you can tell when a platoon has got their anthrax shots. Everybody is complaining. Everybody's right arm or left arm, depending on which arm they use, is just limp and in pain for days on end. I mean, the same thing when they give them this flu mist, the whole platoon gets sick as a dog, and it's just, it sucks. But, you're told you have to take this or you're going to get in deep trouble. Another Another thing I just want to touch on real quick about the just the degrading of human life and just looking down on the quote-unquote enemy, and that's the only way they're going to be able to get us to kill others. When I was in Afghanistan, I looked down on the Afghans, dirty, nasty trash. They don't wear shoes. They have human feces in the roads, just sick. They smell. They have all this stuff. But another thing I would think of, Popeye, is, on late nights when I'm sitting there in an observation post on a mountain somewhere, watching who knows what, I would think to myself, this really sucks really bad, but I'd think of my friends in America back home who have never been in the military. What would they do if you just dropped them right in this spot right now? What would you do if you just dropped one of my friends off on the side of the highway and said, hey, survive? They wouldn't be able to do that. And where I'm going with this is, we think that the Arabs and the Afghans and the Iranians, the Persians, if you will, and the Pakistanis, we think they're all so dirty and below us. Well, I'd be willing to bet that 8 out of 10 Americans could not even survive over there and live the way they live. And we are going to see what we're capable of. When the dollar dies, when we have massive crisis in this country, the Afghans are going to be laughing at us because they've been living like that for hundreds of years, and they're not going to be doing, or they're not doing to each other what we're going to do to each other, eating the bark off of our trees and killing. It's just going to be insane. But, like you said, we look down on them. We think they're dirty trash, and that justifies why we kill them and say that we don't have any remorse about it.
Yeah, and then they have teachers teaching the young kids now. I've seen videos. This one teacher, she was teaching this just pisses me off to the point of even just talking about it. Seriously, this is not play theater. This is not acting. When you hear me getting, like I am tonight, you hear me. This is just this stuff gives me, anxiety in my chest talking about it because I get so irritated because it's just, I get so frustrated trying to get this point across to people half the time. And it's refreshing to see someone of your age because, Ryan, the kids that are younger than you, they're getting taught now. And I've seen video of a teacher doing it, and I know other teachers are doing it, and this is because this is what they're being told to teach the younger generations. These kids are 5 or 6 years old, and they're being taught that all the Afghan people hate us because of our freedom, and they want to kill all of us. And that's why we're in Afghanistan, and we have to stay there and fight because if we don't, they're all going to come kill us. And they hate us. These people don't even know what 9/11 was.
They just want us to leave. That's all they want.
Right? And anybody with half a brain would want the empire out. Who wouldn't want the empire out? Did anybody like Star Wars? Whose side did most people take in Star Wars? The rebels, right? So then why is it that the Afghan people, who they're living in the Stone Age, and you want me to believe that Cobra Commander was hiding in his secret base somewhere with Osama bin Laden, and they were plotting the overthrow of the United States, and G.I. Joe couldn't do anything about it? I mean, come on. Really? You know what I mean?
Not only are they living in the Stone Age, they don't want our help. They don't want electricity. They don't want to be shown how to grow their food with like 10 times more of a yield, which we did. We have contractors over there teaching them how to grow more food. And then when the food crop comes back, after a few months of driving the silly contractor who's getting paid over $100,000 to teach these people how to make food, and we are driving back and forth, getting attacked and blown up as we go along. And then at the end of the whole shebang, they make a huge deal out of it, bring media, cameras. The Afghans just got their first crop, being taught how to use new irrigation, et cetera, and they say, Americans, we're never going to do this again because this is not the Afghan way. We would rather starve and go hungry based off of our own way than be full and have plenty of food because it was given to us by the Americans. It was taught by people that we don't respect and we don't want anything to do with. That's what's going on over there, and they're not telling us this at home.
Of course, because that doesn't sell the proper image that they want to sell. They don't want to hear the truth, and that's why, first of all, again, it's one of the reasons I give kudos to you, because it takes a big set of balls to talk about the truth. A lot of guys don't even want to acknowledge this because then they feel like somehow they're disrespecting their friends who died. Mm-hmm. No. You know how you're disrespecting your friends who died? By not doing anything about it. By not stepping up and exposing that they died in vain. They died for drug money. They died for the lithium that's in there. They didn't die to bring democracy to these people. Obviously, these people don't want us there. So why are we wasting our men and women? Why are we killing these people that they should otherwise be here? Perhaps maybe we should guard our own borders. How about F the border of Afghanistan and Pakistan? Maybe we should put them on the border to stop the drug running. Oh, but if we did that, then the CIA wouldn't make any money and there wouldn't be any black ops, so the money would dry up. Oh, can't do that. Can't stop the war on drugs. But let's take our guys and send them over and put them in a friggin' meat grinder to die for no reason. There isn't a reason for them to be over there. And I know a lot of them can say, well, I don't care, I'll kill whoever, blah, blah. You're brainwashed. Okay? You'll care later on, trust me. I'm looking out for you now. You could think you're all cool and tough shit and, oh, yeah, F you, man. You don't know what it's like. Well, yeah, it's great. Trust me. In 10, 15 years, when what you've been exposed to physically catches up to you, trust me, you'll give a shit. So pay attention. Because the military is not going to be there for you. I know that you're told if you leave, you're effed. Oh my God, it's a joke. Okay, it's an illusion. They're using fear to control you. Let go of the fear. First of all, any honorable institution should not require fear to keep you a member of it. You should want to do so because something inside of you drives you to do it. When they require fear to control you, there's a problem.
Not only that, Popeye, but financial. I mean, Popeye, they have Ford dealerships and Harley Davidson dealerships and Jeep dealerships in Kandahar on the main base for soldiers. So you can buy a car or a motorcycle while you're in Afghanistan.
And drive it where?
Well, you don't get it until you get home, but you get a heck of a deal if you pay there. I mean, it's just out of control.
Yeah, and
soldiers want to deploy just to pay their bills because they spent all their deployment money, got themselves in a bunch of debt, and now, hey, better deploy so I can pay the stuff off. Never mind the fact that I could die for absolutely nothing. Never mind the fact that I don't even know the First Amendment of the Constitution. Never mind any of that. No, I just got to pay my bills. You know, I'm scared to get out, like you said. You know, they tell me economy's going to collapse or the economy's no good. I can't get a job on the outside. I mean, all that stuff is happening, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. The average American cares more about LeBron James and Lady Gaga than they do the military. You know, but hey, that's the world we live in.
Well, I don't agree with most politicians, and I really can't stand Charlie Rangel, although I give him respect for being a Korean War veteran. But I agree when he said that they should reinstate the draft. People are going to go, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. I say it all the time because the war would end in a week. Because suddenly everybody else would be eligible to go get thrown into the meat grinder, not just 1% or 1/10 of 1%. Because that's about what it is right now.
Oh, yeah.
Let's be real. All right. Bombing hour break coming up. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a few minutes. Final segment coming up for the Monday edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Final segment here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. Just so you know, we have a listener line, and we do want to hear from you. We're serious about this. We went and purchased a listener line and, got the voicemail and everything set up on it specifically to hear people's thoughts. You don't often see this in the alternative radio community or alternative media, whatever you want to call it. So we'd like to get your thoughts on things. If you want to call in and give us your thoughts on the network, that's cool. If you want to call in and go off on the New World Order or on the NDAA, the police state, the evolution of humanity, whatever. If you want to call in, if you like a specific show or a host and you just want to call in and give them props or something, that's cool. If you want to call in and gripe, that's cool. People, call in. The number is 888-272-4434. Give us a call. Just leave a message, whatever. And you know what? It might be used on air. We're going to take a bunch of them together, and Tim does our production work. And he's going to put something together, and he's going to put he might hear yourself. Who knows? You might be part of a broadcast history. And not many people in the alternative media are out there trying to get the voice of the people out there. And we'd like to hear from you. So reach out. 888-272-4434. leave us a message. All right, enough promos. Back to the matter at hand. You know, Ryan, I don't want people thinking, and when I say people, let me rephrase that. I don't want active duty or veterans thinking that I'm trying to pigeonhole them either or attack them. I hope you understand from what we've said tonight, which, you know, we've laid it out pretty, cut and dry. There's really no way to misconstrue it, but just in case, we're not attacking anyone. We understand you. And we don't want any more people blowing their brains out because maybe they feel that they see what's going on, but they're surrounded by people like what Ryan said, where it's, I don't care, I get paid, I'll kill whoever, whatever. So if they're surrounded by that, they feel that negativity. Maybe you're awake to what's going on, and or just starting to wake up and you're afraid and you feel alone, and you're not alone. There's way more of you out there than you realize. And you can always, look, honestly, you can always, we're getting our call. We have a custom call board that's almost done. We're building from the ground up. It's going to be up in a few weeks. And when we get that and we start taking phone calls, if you guys have something on your mind, call up. Call Ryan. Call my show when we start doing call-in shows. Do it. I mean, if you need us to, you can email us if you have to. My email is the full word, contact, DTRH@yahoo.com. The full word spelled out, contact, DT, Delta Tango, Romeo Hotel @yahoo.com. Ryan, give out your email so in case anybody wants to contact you.
My email is thesoundoffreedom@hushmail.com.
And you're not alone. We understand what you're going through. Even if you got some shit on your mind because of, like survivor's guilt type thing, like what Ryan and I were talking about, we've both gone through it and experienced it. I still deal with it to this very day. I will not lie to you. There are days I have bad days. I can't lie. Something that'll never go away, I think. Even no matter how much I understand it. I still have days where, and some of that goes back to with 9/11. Part of me still feels like, I should have known better, or I can't believe especially now, I'm like, I can't believe I was so freaking stupid. What was wrong with me? Because at first I bought the official story. Right. I mean, I thought they shot 93 down, and they were lying about that. But I said, well, that's okay, because I know they got to have some stuff, national security. So even though I didn't trust the government, I still backed them because, hey, it was the patriotic thing to do. And I drank the Kool-Aid for a bit, and I'm really angry at myself. I told you off air, one of the things that drives me is I feel a semblance of guilt for the Iraq War. I wasn't boots on the ground, but I was an engineer, and I worked on ships that took part in action over there. So I directly took part in supporting that negative action. It doesn't matter if I was the way I look at it is I hold much responsibility for that as if I was on the ground shooting people or if I was making the commands myself. So that's something that drives me, because there was a period of time where I thought it was okay to kill other people. And and I don't mean in self-defense. I mean just because they were brown and they were quote-unquote ragheads. I was an asshole. I am willing to admit it. I was a Class A jerk-off. I bought into it. I said we should nuke the Middle East and all this stuff. And you know what? I was a moron. And because I drank that Kool-Aid, there was part of me that will never forgive myself. And the only way that I can seek any sort of penance for it is to make sure people know the truth about what goes on in what goes on in any war, and B, what's happening in the Afghan war and the Iraq war. And that's some honest shit right there that I've never told anybody. Ryan's probably one of the only people that knew that until just now.
Popeye, just to touch on what you're saying, I mean, I'm seeing a comment in the chat room that if the vets go for help, then they take their guns right away. And I'm gonna agree with that to an extent, as far as they have all these different agencies now. If you kind of listen to the radio or watch TV, they have all these veterans helplines and all these things. Because, yeah, I mean, when you come home from Afghanistan or Iraq, wherever you come home from, you are now the #1 threat to this country according to the Department of Homeland Security. So if you go say, hey, I'm having suicidal thoughts, or I'm not happy with what I did, or whatever, then yes, they will institutionalize you. They will take your weapons. We have people out here like Popeye, like myself. I mean, I'll talk to anybody. I tell you what, Popeye, when I came home from Afghanistan, my neighbor who passed away from Agent Orange exposure, he was a door gunner in Vietnam. And he said, you know what, I could never do what you guys are doing with all of your 200-pound gear and in the desert. I would go back to Vietnam anytime. And I told him, I cannot fathom what you went through in Vietnam. I would go to Vietnam in a heartbeat over Afghanistan. I'm sorry, I would go to Afghanistan in a heartbeat again over Vietnam. And it just shows, like the camaraderie that veterans have from all different times, from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and everything since then. We have to stick together, and we are there for you guys. If anybody ever needs any help or just wants to talk to anybody, I'm definitely there. The Sound of Freedom at hushmail.com. But also, I mean, it's just... It does take fortitude, Popeye, and the way I am, I just don't care what other people think. And when I broke free, and I just did not care, and I got demonized a lot, and I alienated my family, and I alienated all of my friends back home. And it took a lot of mending and a lot of patchwork to make up with my family. And some of my friends, used to be rather, I mean, they were toxic people from the get-go. They didn't want to hear this stuff. They still love Obama. They don't want to listen to a single thing I say. They've never joined the military. They've never seen anything. It doesn't make me better than them, but it does mean I've been a little bit further around the block than they have. I know the war on terror is a joke because I was in it and I saw it as a fact. It is a joke. And, that's the way it is. I guess what I'm saying is don't be scared to cut off toxic relationships with people who don't appreciate you, who don't support you in your movement. And getting angry and depressed about it, that is natural. And once you get through that, you can get to the acceptance, and that's when you can figure out what you're going to do about it in a peaceful way. Because the last thing they want are a bunch of people that know the system well enough to stop it without getting violent. And that's what they're terrified of.
Yeah, and that's why they have the police state, because see, they need to push for this violent outcome, so that way they're already set for that. They're not set for the other end of the stick, which is where people just evolve and they become irrelevant. They're not ready for that because that's what they're afraid of. So the only thing that they can control, they can't control that, which is where we're headed. But we have to make that choice. It's a choice that's going to be left up to us. Are we going to live in fear and go through because we're not learning and we're not evolving? Are we going to go through an even worse time than you? If you think things suck now, you ain't seen nothing yet. Or what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Are you going to make that choice? Are you going to make the choice where we go down that path of crap, like Bill Cooper used to say? Or are we going to enlighten ourselves? And I say this all the time. I could repeat myself over and over and over and over and over again. But it's we're going to make a choice, dude. We are going to either enlighten ourselves as humanity and grow and evolve. That's why I don't like to call this the movement. I like to call it the evolution. I can't stand saying the movement because it makes me think of bowel movement, which is what this is turning into, because there's all this egotistical infighting and everything else, and people are getting caught up in the what of things. They're not paying attention to the larger picture. People keep getting bogged down in crap, and a lot of times good things are taken over and turned into something else by people that know what they're doing and know how to engineer society, and that's what I see going on. We need to stop thinking of it as a movement. It is just an evolution of humanity. You're waking up, and part of that wake-up process, that's your journey onto this evolution. It's not a movement. It's not a political thing. It's not an ideology. It is what it is. And we're either going to let it naturally progress and we're going to enlighten ourselves, or we're going to go down the shitter real fast. And I believe, like Mark Passio and I have talked about, that we're going to have to go through, as humanity, through an even worse time than we went through in the past, 100 years or 200 years or whatever it is, or even longer, because it's either we enlighten or, the universe says, well, you obviously didn't learn, so now you got to go through even tougher times. And if you thought what you went through sucked, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Right. And you know, Popeye, I just think of some of the guys who I served with who, you know, one of them in particular, the medic we had, I mean, he saved lives and he saw things that I didn't have to see. When I got to look away and just shoot my machine gun and get all gung-ho, Army strong, all that nonsense, he had to put the tourniquets on. He had to put the IVs in. He had to stop the bleeding. He had to pick up the body parts, hear the screams. He has to live with those sights and sounds. But at the same time, he tells me now, I don't care who runs the United States military. I don't care if Leon Panetta has committed treason in Congress. I don't care if the UN gives me a paycheck. I don't care as long as I get paid. Another guy I served with, Popeye, a good kid, you know, a pretty smart guy, but he believes that he found something he's good at, and human rights violations don't matter. He's found a job which is killing. That's what he's good at, even though he's never killed anyone. And it doesn't matter how many children we kill, how many women we kill, whatever. It's just the way it is. And he, you know, he's good at his job. And I want to say to anybody out there who's thinking along those lines, you know, that is not cool. That is what's gotten us into the situation we're in. You're basically a mercenary. No better than a Nazi as far as if you just do what you're told and you don't think about it at all, you still have things that you're going to be held accountable for, like the Constitution. You shouldn't violate constitutional rights.
What about if that was your mom, or if that was your kid, or your daughter, or your niece or nephew, or your brother or your sister? What if that was your daughter? What happens if roles were reversed and somebody kicked in your door at home and shot your 5-year-old kid in the head and laughed about it and took photos and pissed on the body or whatever? What would you do? You'd be enraged. You'd want to kill everybody involved. Oh,
for the rest of your life.
Yeah, but it's completely different when the shoe's on the other foot. No, it's not. Okay, we're all human. The sooner you learn you're being played, there's something a lot of people in the military don't understand. Do you know why we're given dog tags? You know why, Ryan?
I heard you mention something about that, but I was shocked when I heard it. Go ahead and say it for everybody, because I still am like, wow.
Dog tags reference the fact that military, they being the controllers, the powers that shouldn't be, okay, they look at the general society. They call us the dead because we're not actually in touch with universal law or our true power and everything else. We've been brainwashed. So they call us not me, because I'm not part of that anymore. I was at one point, but I'm glad that I'm no longer part of it. I don't consider myself part of that group. But the general mass public, they call the dead. Do you know what they call police and military? They call
dogs?
you. Yes, they call you. They call Ryan. They call me. They call us. They call Joe, Ken. They call us dogs. That's
well, look what Henry Kissinger said. I mean, I don't want to interrupt you, Popeye, but
good point.
Anybody listening, I mean, I'm sure a lot of the listeners know who Henry Kissinger is. What was he, the Secretary of Defense under Nixon, or was he Secretary of State?
He was Secretary of State.
He's the one who's famous for saying that military are nothing more than dumb animals to be used as pawns in foreign policy. Look who's whispering in the current president's ear right now. Look who is still in charge behind the scenes right now.
We need
Henry Kissinger.
We need a new world order, Ryan.
Yeah, and this person, it's just disgusting. This guy really does think that, you know, you're a dog, Popeye, and I'm an animal, and that these troops over there who are dying, they're being soft killed, and they're having their limbs blown off, all these horrible things, seeing things that I wouldn't wish anyone to ever see. And, you know, it's all for a big lie. And I know it's hard to admit it. And you're right. That's what leads to depression.
Well, let's put it into perspective. For them to understand, okay, they call us the dead, right? That would be like the equivalent of whale shit. Well, they look at you, if you're military, police, whatever, they look at you lower than whale shit because you're willing to do the things that you do to your fellow human beings. On command, no questions asked. For a couple bucks, you'll sell your soul. And you know what? They have even less respect for you than they have for the people that they're sicking you on and having you kill. How does that make you feel? How does that make you feel to find out, Ryan, that while you were in Afghanistan, the very societal engineers, the people that are playing this huge chess game, thought that you were nothing more than dog shit on the bottom of their shoe?
Well, I can tell you, if you were to tell me that, if I was talking to you through, Facebook or something while I was in Afghanistan, I'd call you a silly liberal, anti-war weirdo. But now it does make perfect sense, and it is heartbreaking to me to know how many well-intentioned, well-meaning, good people are over there right now, and they're being used as pawns. And I want to say one more thing. When you guys come back home, I mean, when I came home on R&R, Popeye, you go through Dallas. There's one other airport. There's two major airports that all the troops go through when they come home for R&R. And they announce it as soon as you get off the plane to the entire airport that these soldiers are just home from Afghanistan. Please give them a warm ovation. And you get off the plane and it brings everybody to tears because you have just gotten back into America and everybody is standing there clapping for you and cheering for you. Those people, that's really probably the only thing that they've done for you. They don't care. A few people might do some things like send you some trinkets or, some hygiene products or thank you cards or whatever. But for the most part, the American people don't care. They're preoccupied with distractions. And people like Popeye who are out there telling the truth, trying to expose this hoax for what it is. Those, I don't want to go too far and say people like me, but hey, I'm trying to get the truth out there so people don't think twice before they join the military.
Say it, people like you. Look, I'm going to tell you what. I'll blow your ego up for you. It takes a lot of balls to come out, and especially because you still talk to guys that are still enlisted, and it takes a lot of balls to do what you do, dude. It does. I'm older than you. I've been on the planet longer than you. And I'm going to tell you what, as someone who's in a different generation, I have a lot of respect for you. I know Joe Joseph has a lot of respect for you. I know Ken, who's a retired Marine combat vet from Vietnam, has a lot of respect for you. So to the brain-dead people that don't have respect for Ryan, you will one day. You'll appreciate it, and one day maybe you'll be humble enough to say, you know what, Sergeant Brooks, I was wrong. And if you can, you're a better man for it. You really are. If you can be humble about things and admit when you're wrong, that's what makes you strong. A couple weeks ago, I said, it's okay to admit that you love things if you're a guy. It's okay to say, I love you. It's okay to, emanate that energy because you're not a pussy for doing it. See, the powers that be, the people that control society, get you to believe that you're weak if you show love. But it's the other way around. You're weak if you don't. You're strong if you do. A strong man admits when he's wrong. A strong man admits when he needs to break down and cry. There's nothing wrong with it. The people that are telling you that there's something wrong with it, screw them. And you know what? You don't have to go seek. If you don't want to go to one of these places, there's plenty of places. Look online. There's plenty of places that'll help you, run by other vets that, won't try to lock you up or have you put away in a mental institution. There's plenty of stuff out there. Again, contact Ryan. You can email me. My email, again, is the full word, contact, Delta Tango Romeo Hotel @yahoo.com. Email me. Brian, give out your email one more time.
My email is thesoundoffreedom@hushmail.com. Thesoundoffreedom@hushmail.com.
Email us. Talk to us if you have to. Look, I'm not perfect. Ryan's not perfect. Everybody's human. We all make mistakes. Everybody goes through some rough shit. If you've been through stuff that's maybe rougher than I have or rougher than Ryan's, through whatever Ryan's been, or Joe or Ken, we can at least relate to you, sit down, talk to you. Look, the point is there's other people out there. Don't feel so alone, because I'm just tired of seeing kids blow their brains out because they just for a multitude of reasons. The whole stress card thing, which we didn't get a chance to get into. The training is so different now, and of course the generation of kids that are going in are much different than they were back in the day, and that's because of the engineering of society as a whole. The dumbing down. But I don't want anybody feeling alone. I'm just tired of seeing kids blow their brains out. And to the people that think it's a conspiracy theory, the vet suicide thing, they do fudge combat death numbers. I've said this before. If you die boots on the ground from the explosion or the gunshot, it's a combat death. If you die in the helicopter or at the field hospital, it's not a combat death. It's they chalk it up to something else. That's how they fudge numbers. But that's not what's going on. Okay, this is real. And for people to say that, oh, it's a conspiracy, blah, 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 you're doing a disservice to the people that are dying, because guess what? It's a symptom of a much larger problem, and we need to address it. Brooks, we got about a minute left. I want you to plug your show. Go ahead.
All right, Sound of Freedom, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m., only at the Orion Talk Radio. I'm just so part of it. I mean, we talk about everything: economics, politics, what you can do to get ready for the proverbial crap that's about to hit the fan. We cover, a little bit of everything. We're lining up better and better guests every day, and our show is just starting to really go viral, and it's all because of the listeners. So tell your friends and family, and tell them about shows like this and Sound of Freedom while we still can, because you better believe we're going to get deleted off the internet.
That's right. Rip the archives. Keep them, ladies and gentlemen. I urge you, rip my archives, the ones I put up on YouTube. Rip Ryan's archives, save them, archive them, pass them around, make copies, bury them, whatever you got to do. And remember, don't emanate fear. Put out love. We're out of here, ladies and gentlemen.